What's up everybody, my name is Bennett, this is Lethal Games, and today we're talking about the Nintendo Switch and JRPGs. I love JRPGs and apparently so does the Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the biggest JRPG to launch in the console's first year of existence, and it has sold well over 1 million copies worldwide in just a matter of months, making it the developer's best-selling game ever. The acceptance for this genre by the Switch audience was heard loud and clear by publishers and developers alike. 2018 could very likely be the year of JRPGs for the Nintendo Switch. I'll go through some of the releases coming out this year and talk about the state of the genre on the platform afterwards. Though the first half of the year has been relatively quiet, the second half promises to be pretty epic, with a ton of games coming out. The most immediate release is Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, which is coming out June 26th, less than a week away. This will be the next big JRPG franchise to make a Switch debut after Xenoblade. This installment of the franchise has been generally well received, and when it initially released last year, it was getting a lot of praise for improvements in the story and a fantastic combat system. Like most other JRPGs, each game is usually a self-contained story that takes place in the same universe, and Ys 8 is no exception, so you can enjoy the game without playing the previous titles. Shining Resonance Refrain will mark the first time a Shining game gets Western localization in over a decade. This is a remastered version of Shining Resonance that released in 2014 and includes all the DLCs along with 2 new playable characters in the Refrain mode. A demo of the prologue chapter has been released in the North American eShop, so you can check it out if you like. I played the demo and the game looked a lot better than I thought it would. I do enjoy this anime visual style a lot better than what you get with Xenoblade or Ys, though I feel like the first impressions of the combat is kind of clunky, but I'll refrain from judgment until I actually play the full game. I may do a review on this, so hit that subscribe button if you're interested. Shining Resonance Refrain releases on July 10th. But probably the game I'm most excited for is Octopath Traveler. There has been a ton of hype around it, and deservedly so. There's already been 2 demos out on the eShop, and the latest one lets you play all 8 of the prologue stories. Naturally, that's exactly what I did, and I can tell you that there's something there for everybody. Each of the 8 stories are unique with different themes and tailored to different types of people. In general, the stories seem well written so far, but we really can't tell until we get the full version. What I can tell you for sure is that the combat is amazing. There's a ton of depth and strategies to the encounters, and the boss fights are actually challenging. Now, I won't go into too much detail about the game, and I'll save that for my full review, which is definitely coming once I get my hands on the game. Another JRPG franchise that is making its way to the Switch is Valkyria Chronicles. Unlike the first 2 games I've mentioned, Valkyria Chronicles 4 is not a port, but a simultaneous global release of the game along with other platforms. The game also differs from the others in that it takes place in the 20th century with a tactical military theme rather than fantasy. It blends various elements of RPGs, FPS, and probably the closest comparison I can think of is something similar to XCOM in terms of tactics. The game is scheduled for release on September 25th. Perhaps the most famous JRPG series after the Final Fantasy is the Tales series. During E3, Tales of Vesperia, the definitive edition, was announced for the Switch. For the uninitiated, the Tales series is known for its anime-like graphics, fantastic cutscenes, and its linear motion battle system, which does occasionally get augmented between installments. The last Tales games I played was Tales of Berseria, and I absolutely loved it. The upcoming Vesperia is one of the most loved installments in the entire franchise, and the remastered version will feature updated graphics, DLCs from the Japan exclusive version, and dual vocal tracks. Vesperia is set to release in winter of 2018. Of course, these aren't the only games that are coming to the Switch, just the ones that have been announced or confirmed. Level 5 Games, most famous for Ni no Kuni, Professor Layton, and the Yokai Watch series, is rumored to be working on a game for the Switch. The CEO of the studio has expressed his love for the Switch on multiple occasions, and has said that all their future main releases will be on the Switch. Ni no Kuni 2 released earlier this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if a port of that is what they're working on. Of course, they're not the only studios that have recognized the potential of the platform. NIS America is responsible for bringing Disgaea 5 and Ys 8 to the Switch, and they're not stopping there. The company has also promised to bring new IPs and sequels to the platform in the future as well. If we look further into the future, the next installment of the highly popular Shin Megami Tensei series has also been confirmed to be in development for the Switch. Now, this is not a big surprise as the franchise has had a long history with Nintendo on the 3DS, and it's only natural that their next mainline title will move to Nintendo's newest handheld. But what about non-mainline games? The Persona series began as a spin-off to the Megami Tensei games, but has grown into a franchise in its own right. The latest entry, Persona 5, received universal acclaim and became the best-selling game in the series. Unfortunately, the series has always been exclusive to the PlayStation platform, but recently the developer of the Persona games released a survey asking fans which platform they prefer their next game to be on, which opens the possibility that Persona games may finally get released on other platforms, including the Switch. The last Persona game I played was Persona 4 and I fell in love with the gameplay. I really hope the series will get released on either the Switch or PC in the future. And how can we talk about JRPGs without talking about the Final Fantasy franchise? It's the big one that is currently absent, but I doubt it would be for long. And for those who are unaware, Square Enix are actually the developers behind Octopath Traveler, and they've announced earlier this year that they've created an entire division that will focus exclusively on the Switch platform. That means more new IPs like Octopath Traveler, and very likely ports of the Final Fantasy games. Square Enix is no stranger to ports, and they've released a ton of remastered versions of the Final Fantasy games on the PC in recent years. In my opinion, it's not a question of if, but when. What I would love to see is the simultaneous release of the long-awaited Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Switch. Now that would be amazing. Square Enix is also responsible for publishing the legendary Dragon Quest franchise, and the 11th installment is releasing September of this year. The Switch version is confirmed to be in development as well, but will release at a later date. So there are a ton of JRPGs that are releasing or are rumored to be in the works for the Switch. The question is, why are so many of the developers of this genre flocking to Nintendo's latest platform? Well, JRPGs have always found a place in handheld devices like the 3DS or the PS Vita, but as these consoles get increasingly dated and their user base shrinks, developers will need to find a new home. And at the moment, the Switch is basically the only modern portable console. Not only that, it also doubles as a full-fledged home console that paves way for new experiences. The success of the Switch only fuels the fire. It's only natural for developers to want to create games for a platform that has a ton of active users who are willing to buy their games. Now don't get me wrong though, the 3DS and even the Vita to some extent still have very sizable player bases, but it's only a matter of time before it starts to dwindle as support for these systems begin to wane. It's highly advantageous for developers to jump onto the Switch platform while it's still new, learn how to properly develop for it, and build a fanbase with the platform's audience. The Switch could very well be the next king when it comes to platforms for JRPGs, and if you're a fan of the genre, the future certainly looks promising. So which of these games are you guys most excited about, and what JRPGs do you want to see get released on the Nintendo Switch? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll likely be doing reviews of some of these games, Octopath Traveler for sure, so hit that subscribe button and don't miss out. That's it for me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.